it will be fine, it will pass. That night they didn't really find anything, they just diagnosed me with vertigo, but I had been extremely dehydrated. I was in the hospital all night, and I left in time to not go to work because the doctor told me I wasn't allowed to go. I had been volunteering at the hospital at this point, and so they knew me pretty well, and the nurse that I had was great. I love her to death. I still love her. She's one of my favorite nurses ever. But she told me that if I went to work, she would have my head. And so did several of the other nurses and the doctor. They told me I was not allowed to go to work, that I was not allowed to go and take my exams that day, that I needed to rest, and that I needed to call the neurologist to go see her that day. So I couldn't get in. They moved my appointment from, it was supposed to be a couple weeks away, but they moved it up closer to a closer date just to make sure that, everything was alright. So I went back to the neurologist and everything was fine. I was feeling better. They had given me medicines for the vertigo, and I was able to do everything that I was trying to do. That Christmas I went to Germany, and it was great. I love seeing my family. My grandparents and my aunts and my uncles and my cousins and all them still live in Germany, and so it was really good. I was sick a lot of the time that I was there. I was really nauseous and getting dehydrated again. We couldn't figure out what was going on, but I stuck with it. I loved it. I tried to do everything I could and went with it. I came back that spring. We're at spring of 2009, and it was really exciting. It was sad that my roommate was graduating in May and I wasn't, but I knew that at that point I was like, well, I'll graduate in December and everything will be fine. My plans quickly changed. That January I was getting really sick. We couldn't figure out what was going on. I started losing a lot of weight. I ended up losing about 60 pounds in about 5.5 weeks. I couldn't eat, I couldn't do anything. It was really bad. I would still try to eat because I was like, I'm losing weight and I can't handle this. I was taking all night classes at that point, so that helped a lot with having to go to the doctor. Because I didn't have class until 6 o'clock and all doctor's offices closed at 5, so I could still go to all my classes. I only had classes 3 nights a week. I was only taking 3 classes. But it was difficult in the fact that we still had no answers. But in February of 2009, I had gotten really, really sick. We weren't entirely sure what was going on. I would eat. I was starting to gain a little bit of weight back, which was wonderful. But I'm not entirely sure what happened to this day. I remember going to the kitchen. My roommate was in class. It was probably about 3 o'clock, so I was on the verge of eating an early dinner and getting dressed so I could head to campus because I had to catch the buses. And so I remember going to the kitchen to throw something away, and the next thing I know, I wake up on the floor. I had no idea what happened. I called my mom freaking out. I was like, I just passed out and I don't know why, and I don't know what to do. She told me to obviously go to the emergency room. So that was another trip for me, and I was not happy. I called one of my friends, and I was like, please come over here. I need you. And so she came over, and I didn't move from where I was until she got there. I was really afraid of what was going to happen. And so in the process of trying to get me out of my half dress state, I was like halfway in my class clothes, halfway in my PJs still. Yes, PJs at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was snowy and I wasn't going outside. So I was trying to get a sweatshirt on and I passed out again. Really freaked my friend out. So we go to the emergency room, and I won't forget this day. It was one of the scariest days I had ever had. My heart rate was in the 180s. They weren't sure why. When I was standing up, they could not get a blood pressure on me at all, and I would start passing out. When I was laying down, my blood pressure, they said it was alright. I didn't look. I was just too busy trying not to die. I was mad because I was supposed to be in class, and if you missed one class, you failed. And that was my concern, was I don't want to fail this class. It was the easiest class I've ever taken. And, that didn't work out. I didn't go. I was in the emergency room for 15 hours that day, or night. They did a lot of blood work. They did EKGs. Everything was coming back, EKG-wise, was coming back alright. Blood work was coming back really weird. I had a very low potassium level. Potassium levels should be between 3.6 and 5. Mine was 1.9. So I was in a very low potassium state. So they gave me potassium supplements and to raise my potassium levels, and my sodium levels were low as well. And so they told me, they were giving me IV fluids at this point. So that was helping with the sodium, but they told me I had to eat more sodium when I was at home, which I'm a college student, so I eat a lot of processed foods, and I was just like, a lot of the stuff I've been eating has a lot of salt, so I don't understand what's going on. But I went with it. I was like, alright, I guess I'll add salt. I hate salt, but I guess I'll add it. And so they came back about an hour later, and the doctor really scared me. He was like, your blood test came back positive, so we're getting to do more tests. And I was just, and he walked out the door, and I was like, oh, wait, what? And so I, flagged down my favorite nurse ever, because she was my nurse again, and I was like, Shannon, what are they talking about? What is this positive blood clot test? I'm confused. Please explain. So, they did a lot of CAT scans to see if I had a blood clot anywhere, but they could not find a blood clot. So they gave me blood thinner dose while I was there, and the next morning, it was morning at this point, I went home. I didn't go to school. I didn't have school that Thursday or Friday. I just had class Monday through Wednesday nights, and it was a Wednesday afternoon that I went. So I had a few days to rest. I had to follow up with the health services on campus, because there was a couple tests that they didn't get done, that was there that needed to be done, and so they wanted to make sure I wasn't losing my potassium as well through my urine, so they figured at that point that they could check it and they would tell. At that point, nothing came back abnormal. It was all fine. But it was really, really weird. So I called my neurologist, and she couldn't get me in sooner, but she wanted me to go ahead and do a bunch of tests in case, or so she would have them when I went to see her again on my birthday. I've only seen my neurologist pretty much on my birthday. We got to the point where she started bringing me birthday cakes. But she sent me down the mountain to a medical school hospital, because the town I'm in it's only like 15,000 residents, which the university has 18,000, so we're a university town for sure, but we don't have a lot of the newer medical technologies, so I had to go 2 hours down the mountain to have a tilt table test, and during the tilt table test, my heart rate skyrocketed. I felt horrible. I did not know what was going on. I was just like, I don't feel well. I don't like this. Can we stop? And of course, they don't let you stop. And so, it was just bad. I remember being so thankful when that test was over. I didn't actually pass out during this, which was good or bad. I guess depends on how you're looking at it. I really didn't want to pass out. I had been passing out frequently, but not too often. So I was just like, well, I'm not too sure about this. That night, I got back to town, and I was really sick. it had drained everything out of my body. I had no idea what was going on. I just felt horrible. I couldn't do anything, and I just laid in bed for like a week. She also sent me to have EEG to make sure I wasn't having any seizures, since I have the little thrashing issues while I'm sleeping, so she wanted to make sure I wasn't having seizures, which I thought was, useful information. So I had to have a completely sleep-deprived EEG. I couldn't sleep for 24 hours, which, I'm a college student, I don't do all-nighters at all. Never done one. That was my first. And I knew if I stayed home, I was going to sleep. So I worked in the ER that night. After going to school, I worked in the ER. It was fun. They kept me awake. I learned a lot of cool things from the night shift people. A lot I didn't want to know. When I went to see her, she still didn't really have answers. The test said possible POTS, some dysautonomia dysfunction, but that was all it said. It really didn't say anything else. So she put me on a couple medicines just to see if they would help. There were more SSRIs, she said, that would subdue the nervous system, and they would also help with the dizziness. And by this time I had graduated from physical therapy. I had stopped going. I had plateaued, and I wasn't really getting any better, so we thought it was pointless to go 3 times a week, so I went maybe once a month, if at all. I haven't been in a while, and I should, but that's alright. So she put me on the medicines, and we just kind of went. That summer, I'd still been passing out, but nothing like I was. I could still do stuff. It would just be if I completely and utterly exerted myself, which I live in the mountains and I love hiking. I had to kind of give that up because it would just exhaust me, and I would just get really out of breath, and I couldn't really do anything. I would get like 5 feet and be like, I'm done. So that summer I was driving, and I passed out while I was driving. So they took my license, and I went back to the neurologist, and she was like, well, I think you have POTS. I don't care what those results said, you have POTS. She said they were close enough to saying that, yeah, you do have this dysautonomia problem. We're going to go ahead and treat you for POTS. So that was kind of how I got my POTS diagnosis. They weren't entirely, the test didn't come back saying I had POTS. They didn't say that I didn't. That just said there was a possibility. So after I continued to pass out, she decided that I had it, and that I would probably grow out of it, that I probably got it from some sort of virus, but she wasn't entirely sure. She just kind of said, we'll just go with it, and we'll start treating the symptoms. So I was nauseous a lot and dizzy still, so that was the symptoms we treated. But my story doesn't exactly end there. That was just how I got diagnosed with POTS. Since I've had POTS, a lot more has gone on, so I will post another video with that.